During the engagement ceremony, my childhood sweetheart, Ethan Shaw, received a phone call from Hannah Yan, who said she was afraid of the dark. He left me, Emily Shen, standing there alone and hurried to her side without hesitation. Later, I asked him for an explanation, but he only said that Hannah was shy, timid, and afraid of strangers, and that she couldn't be without him. I didn't pursue the matter any further. I took off my wedding dress, called off the engagement, and accepted the family-arranged alliance marriage. Half a month later, Ethan saw my wedding photos with Daniel Song, the CEO, at a bridal boutique. His face instantly turned pale. He chased me all the way to the Shaw family's ancestral home and angrily questioned me about why I had turned on him so suddenly. Daniel held my hand tightly, smiling as he casually twirled a lock of my hair around his fingers. "Why are you in such a hurry, ex-fiancé?" he said. "You chose to stay with your childhood sweetheart, so she can marry her own childhood companion as well. As for this marriage, it's meant to show respect between both families." Back then, both families had already spent millions preparing the engagement banquet between Ethan and me, Emily Shen. Almost everyone in the upper circles of the capital had been invited. Just as the MC was about to pick up the microphone, Ethan's phone rang. I was standing right beside him and clearly heard the soft female voice on the other end of the line. "Ethan, there was thunder this afternoon and the power lines malfunctioned. The whole neighborhood lost electricity. It's really dark at home right now, and I'm so scared. Where are you? Could you come stay with me for a while?" When he heard that she was alone, Ethan frowned deeply and said in a low voice, "The psychologist already told you you're sensitive and shouldn't be alone. Why did you go home by yourself?" Hannah's voice trembled as she replied, "But other than you, Ethan, I have no one. Forget it. You're about to have a family anyway. I shouldn't disturb you." After saying that, she quickly hung up. A sense of unease rose in my heart. Sure enough, the very next second, Ethan pushed through the crowd and ordered his assistant to prepare the car. He didn't look at me even once before turning around and leaving, abandoning nothing but a complete mess behind him. The guests were stunned and began whispering among themselves. "What's going on? Where did President Shaw go? The groom ran off. What kind of engagement is this?" I watched Ethan's retreating figure, my entire body turning cold. Mrs. Shaw quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "The banquet will continue. Please don't worry. Ethan just had an urgent matter to deal with. We ask for everyone's understanding." In reality, those words were meant to placate me, but how could I not take it to heart? By tomorrow, I would become the laughingstock of the entire city. I ignored the news flooding every major headline. When I arrived at the Yan family villa, the rain had already stopped. The door wasn't locked, so I pushed it open and saw Ethan holding a hairdryer, gently drying Hannah Yan's hair. The way he looked at her was full of tenderness and indulgence, an expression I had never once seen him show me. The first person to notice me was Hannah. She panicked and sprang to her feet, hurriedly putting distance between herself and Ethan. She waved her hands and explained nervously, "Don't misunderstand. It's my fault for being clumsy. I went outside earlier to get something and accidentally slipped into the garden pond. Ethan saw I was hurt, so he helped me. He was just drying my hair." Before I could say anything, Ethan had already reached out and rubbed her head. "Silly girl, there's nothing to explain." His voice was so gentle it felt unreal. The humiliation I suffered last night hurt less than that one casual sentence. The corners of my eyes grew damp without me realizing it. I took a deep breath and said, "Ethan, come out here. I have something I want to ask you." Reluctantly, he put the hairdryer down and followed me into the garden, still wearing that lazy, indifferent expression. I looked straight into his eyes. "You left me behind at the engagement without saying a word. I need a reason." Ethan lit a cigarette, and the thick smoke made it hard for me to see his expression clearly. He replied calmly, "Hannah is shy and afraid of strangers. She can't do without me. Besides, the marriage was already settled. Both families invested a lot, there's reputation involved, and there are real interests as well. Why do you need to argue over every little detail?" I lowered my head and clenched the hem of my clothes tightly, unwilling to let myself reveal how miserable I felt. Everyone knew how much Ethan Shaw doted on his childhood sweetheart, Hannah Yan. Hannah's parents lived abroad year-round, and throughout her school years, it was Ethan who took care of her. Whenever there was a parent-teacher meeting, he went in her parents' place. Even when she went through puberty, he was the one who personally went out to buy her sanitary pads. They grew up together, sharing a long stretch of life in which I never existed. I had never truly thought about this before. All I knew was that I treated him well, that I tried to get my father to support his career and help him expand his connections, that I did everything I could to integrate myself into his world. But no matter how hard I tried, there was always a distance I could never cross. It felt like I was driving on a road with no end in sight. Only today did I finally understand that it wasn't that I wasn't good enough. It was that Ethan's heart had never been cleared out. There was already someone living in it, so there was no room for me to step inside. I lifted my head and said calmly, "Ethan, let's break up." When he heard that, he didn't look flustered at all. He simply didn't believe I had the courage to leave him. He glanced at me indifferently and said, "Xiao Yu, don't say things out of anger. I don't like being threatened." I didn't explain. I got into my sports car by myself. After driving less than 100 meters, I couldn't help glancing at the rearview mirror. He didn't chase after me, didn't call to hold me back, still as cold and detached as ever. My mood was terrible, unimaginably terrible. The moment I saw a message from my close friends asking me out for drinks, I almost agreed without hesitation. Seeing how rare it was for me to say yes, they immediately started teasing me. "Since when did Xiao Yu get so busy that she actually has time to come out?" "This is harder than inviting the universe's savior," someone joked. "Inviting you is harder than inviting my grandma." Duongbang chimed in as well. I asked for the location and immediately turned the car around toward the clubhouse. When I walked into the private room, the glass table was already covered with bottles of alcohol. I glanced around, didn't see that person, and finally felt at ease as I sat down on the sofa. I opened a bottle and took a big gulp. As a woman, my thoughts were naturally more delicate. Maybe Duongbang had already told everyone about what happened last night. She walked over and hooked her arm through mine, speaking gently. "Xiao Yu, let's sing. We haven't even started playing yet. Why are you already drinking?" I let out a bitter laugh and lightly brushed her hand away. "It's fine. I just want to drink a little today." My friends tried their best to tell jokes to cheer me up, but I truly had no mood for it. I drank one bottle after another, until the door was pushed open again. Under the dim lights, the handsome face of Tong Jinjae appeared. His cold eyes landed on me, then in an instant turned into a look of mockery. His long legs carried him over as he sat down right beside me. The glossy black suit, paired with his casual posture, created a stark contrast. He reached out and snatched the bottle I had just been drinking, tilted his head back, and poured it down. The liquor slid along his throat, and his whole body seemed to reek of debauchery. Tong Jinjae stared straight at me, his tone teasing. "The news has spread all over the city, and you're still in the mood to drink?" Of course, he was talking about yesterday's scandal. I glared at him. "President Tong, are you very free today?" His tech company had just gone public not long ago. This should have been his busiest time. I sneered inwardly. I was practically burning myself out with work, yet he still had time to worry about other people's business. He curled his lips into a cold smile, then casually dropped a lethal line. "So this man is the reason you refused the marriage alliance with the Tong family?" His gaze swept over me. Not bad taste. I instantly flew into a rage and turned to glare at the opposite sofa, snapping irritably. "Zhao Rui, didn't I tell you not to call me if he was coming? Are you out of your mind?" Zhao Rui looked completely innocent. "But this place belongs to President Tong. He's the one hosting tonight." Hearing that, I was left speechless. Tong Jinjae raised his eyebrows, gripping the bottle. "I invited the guests, and now you want to kick me out?" I didn't bother answering him, nor did I want to get entangled any further. Tong Jinjae was my childhood nemesis. No, I refused to call him by that nauseating label of childhood sweetheart. I preferred to think of him as my lifelong rival. Unlike Ethan Shaw and his gentle, lovable little childhood friend, Tong Jae and I had been at each other's throats since we were kids. We could argue 8 times in 2 days. As long as I was near him, the ugliest side of me would inevitably be dragged out. To protect my own emotional boundaries, I had always avoided appearing in the same space as him. I reached out to snatch the bottle of liquor back, but Tong Jinjae lifted his arm higher, just out of reach. Frustrated, I braced myself against the sofa and stretched my other arm upward, tilting my head back. His breath brushed dangerously close to my skin. Tong Jinjae looked at me like a wild beast, yet I didn't sense even a trace of ambiguity in his eyes. To me, this person was neither man nor woman, just a bastard who needed to be beaten. Seeing that I couldn't grab it, he provoked me further. "Is that all you've got?" I laughed angrily and shot back. "What? You like drinking someone else's leftovers?" Beside us, Brandon Park finally couldn't take it anymore and kept trying to intervene. "Oh my God, you two ancestors, when are you ever going to sit through one gathering peacefully?" Tong Jinjae's face suddenly darkened. He slammed his glass onto the floor, the shattering sound cutting straight through the singing. Even I was startled. He lowered his voice and said, "Ethan Shaw humiliated you like that? Are you really gonna let them keep enjoying themselves?" Only then did I realize that his mood wasn't any better than mine. This lunatic was the type who, once he snapped, was best not provoked. Back in school, when he got into fights, he was just as reckless and vicious. Today, he hadn't even brought bodyguards. Fine, temporary ceasefire. I didn't want anything to do with him, but for some reason, Tong Jinjae seemed especially unhinged tonight. He suddenly grabbed my hand, sharp light flashing in his eyes. "If I were you, I'd take revenge hard. The first step would be to let them know that even without those two lowlifes, you're still living just fine." I fell silent. Images of Ethan Shaw and Hannah Yan being affectionate flashed through my mind, my thoughts in complete chaos. I needed time to calm down, but Tong Jinjae kept pushing me. His voice turned icy. "Oh right, I forgot, you've never had the guts. When people bully you, all you know how to do is endure it. You don't dare." I was already furious, and his taunting finally made me explode. "Who says I don't dare?" I grabbed the bottle Brandon Park had just opened and tipped my head back, taking a long drink. Tong Jinjae lifted his glass and gently clinked it against mine, his voice low and almost hypnotic. "Compared to the Shaw family, the Tong family is far more powerful. If you agreed to a marriage alliance with me, Ethan Shaw would be so mad he wouldn't sleep for days. Too bad you're not the type who can accomplish great things. You give up knee for feelings. I'm guessing you'd turn down the alliance anyway." Just imagining Ethan Shaw furious made my blood boil. I slammed the bottle down on the table. "Don't try to guess what I'm thinking." I stared straight at him. "Tong Jinjae, let's get married tomorrow. Do you dare?" He lifted the corner of his eyes and laughed. "Fine, if I don't show up, I'm a dog." After hearing our exchange, the 4 people nearby practically exploded. "What? You two are getting married? Oh my God. The world is really about to end. Don't tell us you're joking." That night, I lay on the bed in a daze. I only felt someone pressing a kiss to my lips, as if he had been restraining himself for a long time and finally let go. My hands were held tightly, the madness making it hard for me to breathe. Just when I was about to lose it, he stopped. His hoarse voice sounded by my ear. "That's enough. Before the wedding, I'll spare you. Good night, baby." When I woke up, my lips were still numb. I opened my eyes to see Tong Jinjae standing over me, shirtless, his firm, well-defined abs strikingly alluring. I immediately hurled a pillow at his face. "What are you doing in my room?" Tong Jinjae tilted his head helplessly. "Last night you hugged me and called me your big brother. You hugged me, kissed me, and wouldn't let me leave. What, forgot already? Even a dog wouldn't believe that." I snorted in disdain. "Tong Jinjae, cut it out. Stop making things up." He seemed to be in an exceptionally good mood today, the corners of his eyes curved, his long eyes strikingly beautiful. He crossed his arms and began teasing me. "You really don't remember what you said last night? Do you still want to go register the marriage? Don't you still want revenge, or are you backing out again?" Tong Jinjae always knew exactly where to hit my weak spot. Provoked by him, I instantly forgot the strange numbness lingering on my lips. I jumped up to change clothes. After breakfast, we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. The clerk looked at the 2 gloomy faces in front of her and fell into a brief silence before hesitantly lowering her voice to ask me, "Miss, are you doing this of your own free will?" If you're being threatened, just blink once. I forced a crooked smile. I'm doing this voluntarily. Haha. I'm extremely happy, really. The clerk scratched her head and continued with the paperwork. In the end, the red marriage certificate landed in our hands. I walked out of the gate with Tong Jinjae, my mood heavy. Above us, the sunlight was dazzling. The rain from the past few days completely dried away. It was a rare stretch of good weather in the rainy season. My thoughts drifted back to that gloomy, overcast engagement ceremony, and my heart felt inexplicably hollow. The moment I stepped into the sun, an umbrella appeared over my head. Tong Jinjae stood lazily beside me, shooting me a look. Are you blind? The UV is this strong, and you don't even bother to cover up. I looked at him and sighed, not daring to imagine how chaotic life would be if I had to live with Tong Jinjae for the rest of my days. I didn't want to talk. I turned and walked in the opposite direction. Tong Jinjae grabbed my hand and pulled me back to his side. I frowned at him, only to notice that his expression had grown unusually serious. Stop, he said, his voice authoritative. Come with me to the Tong family home. The image suddenly overlapped with the powerful CEO he was on the business battlefield. His sudden seriousness left me completely at a loss. In my mind, this was nothing more than retaliation. Once it was done, we would go our separate ways. Tong Jinjae only wanted to see me embarrassed. Yet now he was talking about taking me back to the Tong family home, dragging the elders into this. Before I could even open my mouth, he gave me no room to negotiate and hauled me into the car. The moment I got in, the driver started the engine. Tong Jinjae laced his fingers through mine. I struggled for a long time but couldn't break free. What are you trying to do? I asked. What's between us doesn't need to involve our parents. Tong Jinjae shamelessly leaned closer, staring straight at me. Emily Shen, you stole my first kiss last night. You touched me, hugged me, kissed me. I recorded everything. You're not planning to take responsibility. Startled, I glanced at the driver and hurriedly reached out to cover his mouth. Stop it, I didn't. Before I could finish, Tong Jinjae played the recording. From it came my soft, indistinct sounds, unmistakably the sound of kissing. My face flushed crimson. Turn it off. Tong Jinjae curled his lips into a grin. So, are you coming back to the Tong family home or not? Left with no other choice, I clenched my teeth. Fine, I'll go. When the car reached the commercial district, traffic was heavily congested. Just as the light turned red, the car stopped by the curb. The window rolled down, and I saw a familiar figure. Ethan Shaw was carrying an exquisite cake, his handsome face wearing a happy smile. The wind blew as Hannah Yan stood on tiptoe to fasten the buttons of the gray silk shirt beneath his black suit. Beside them were 10 bodyguards, each holding bags from high-end luxury brands. On the large cake were the words, "Happy birthday, Yan Yan." I stared at their intimacy, a bitter ache surging in my chest, as if the peach blossom wine I had brewed for 10 years had finally been drunk dry by someone else. Clearly, I was the one who had always stood by his side, protecting him, yet he took the warmth that belonged to me and used it to love someone else. I turned and walked away, and he didn't stop me. There was no phone call, not a single message, as if this was how it was always meant to be. But just because she said she was afraid of the dark, the anxious, worried look on his face was enough that I couldn't help but care. Maybe he had already forgotten the way his eyes once burned for me. Back then, when Ethan Shaw had just taken over the family business, he happened to be cleaning up the mess left behind by his relatives. All eyes were on him, and the internal strife within the group never stopped for a moment. I watched him shoulder the pressure, step by step reclaiming power. I first met him at a banquet. At the time, his brows were tightly furrowed, his whole body tense, the phone in his hand ringing nonstop. That night, everyone drank themselves senseless, only he and I remained sober. I took the initiative to walk over and clink glasses with him. "President Shaw, are you going out to have fun, or are you just changing workplaces?" Ethan looked up at me, momentarily stunned by my appearance. "Sorry," he said. "The company has too many things going on." I crossed my legs and smiled at him. "President Shaw has been fighting battles alone for so long. Of course you're tired. How about the two of us play a game?" That night, Ethan's luck was terrible. He lost miserably and owed far too many drinks, yet he still needed to keep a clear head to handle work. He looked at me apologetically. I really can't drink anymore. Can we change the punishment? I stared straight at his handsome face, curved my lips and said, a punishment? Then be my boyfriend. I was hot-tempered and easily irritated. There probably wasn't a better punishment than this. Ethan chuckled softly. Sure, I couldn't ask for more. I took the initiative to push cooperation between our two families, bringing him many additional connections. In this relationship, I was mostly the one clinging to him. I took care of him, and perhaps because of that, he forgot that I, too, needed to be loved. Thinking of this, my heart became a tangled mess. I pulled out a cigarette and lit it, smoke curling upward. Before I could even exhale the first puff, Tong Jinja blocked it right at my lips. The car window rolled up and he grabbed the back of my head and kissed me deeply. The faint smoke that hadn't yet dissipated lingered around the two of us. His beautiful eyes fixed on my face. Tong Jinja kissed very well, forceful yet not lacking gentleness. The heavy mood from earlier was suddenly replaced by an indescribable sensation. After he had satisfied his searching, he slowly let me go. Tong Jinja rested his forehead against mine, his voice hoarse. When did you learn to smoke? I instinctively wanted to snap back, but this dangerously intimate posture reminded me that it was better to stay silent. I lowered my eyes. Recently, because of another man. My tone was strange as I lifted my head. What, are you jealous? His answer surprised me, just a little. If he knew that you started smoking because of him, only to be forcibly kissed by me, his expression would probably be very interesting. Thinking about it that way, I was still the winner. I coldly pushed him away. Get lost. The atmosphere gradually returned to normal. I stopped looking at him and waited for the car to drive into the Tong family estate. The moment we arrived, the two of us simultaneously slipped into our act. Grandma Tong was overjoyed when she saw me. She pulled my hand, her kindly face lighting up. Xiao Yu, it's been so long since you came to visit after graduating. The older you get, the prettier you are. She was still as gentle and warm as ever. I smiled and greeted her. It's been a long time, Grandma. I was too busy before and never had the chance to come by. How have you been? Good, Xiao Yu, you have to come more often, she said warmly. Back when you were in school, you came every day. Now that you're grown up, I hardly ever see you. Tong Jinja lifted the hem of his shirt to wipe his sweat. Grandma, I'm gonna take a shower. You and Xiao Yu chat for a bit first. I stayed with Grandma Tong, chatting about trivial things around the house. In the middle of it, I suddenly remembered how, back when we were in school, Tong Jinja had once secretly stolen my pen. That pen fit my hand perfectly. I remember how, back then, I had a full-blown fight with him over it. To this day, he still hadn't returned it. I knew the layout of his room like the back of my hand, so I seized the moment and hurried upstairs to look for it. When I pushed open the door to Tong Jinja's bedroom, what greeted my eyes was the same clean, orderly look as always. I walked over to his desk and noticed a photo frame placed on top. Inside the photo were the two of us together. The boy, dressed in a black windbreaker, had casually draped an arm over the girl's shoulder, while the girl wore a cold expression, clearly unwilling to cooperate. The moment I saw that photo, I froze. If I counted it carefully, Tong Jinja and I had known each other since 7th grade, 13 years already. Yet among our entire group of close friends, he and I were the only ones who had never taken a photo together. That picture was the sole exception. Back then, we were in high school, and the school had organized a mountain hiking trip. Tong Jinja and I got into an argument halfway through, and it escalated until we completely split off from the group. That day, we weren't allowed to bring our phones, so neither of us knew where the rest of the group had gone. By the time the class gathered for the group photo, we had already missed it. The teacher looked at Tong Jinja, sloppy-looking, refusing to wear his uniform, then at me, disobedient and running around on my own, and flew into a rage. Are you two deliberately trying to stand out? The whole class waited for you, and now you only show up after the photos are done? Go, 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 take photos with another class. Tong Jinja was in class 2, I was in class 1, yet we were both shoved into class 6 to take pictures. No one around us was familiar, and the teacher kept scolding us, putting me in an awful mood. Tong Jinja, on the other hand, acted like nothing was wrong, still chattering in my ear and deliberately provoking me. I was so furious that the photographer clicked the shutter right then. That moment was captured, and that was how the only photo of us together came to be. But now, the group photo had been cropped out, leaving just the two of us framed and placed neatly on his desk. I held the photo frame, my head full of questions. What was Tong Jinjae trying to do by keeping this? Just then, I heard the sound of water stopping in the adjacent bathroom. I immediately put the frame back and rushed out. Because I was flustered, my steps were too hurried, and I slammed straight into Tong Jinjae as he walked out of the bathroom. He had a white towel wrapped around his waist, his hair still wet, steam clinging to his well-defined abs, looking so seductive it made it hard to breathe. When he noticed me staring, he raised an eyebrow and teased, "What are you staring at so intently? What, have you fallen for me?" I pouted and slipped past him. "You're crazy. I just came up to get something." With his gaze glued to me, I awkwardly retreated downstairs in a hurry. That evening, Tong Jinjae announced to his parents that the two of us had already registered our marriage. Uncle and Aunt Tong were so overjoyed they were practically ready to pop the lid off the rice cooker. The two families had always been very close, longtime friends, and they had long hoped that one day they would become in-laws. Now that a dream they'd held for years had finally come true, how could they not be happy? I sat at the dining table, pretending to be well-behaved, watching Uncle and Aunt Tong call my parents to share the news. So this really had blown up. My parents knew now too. It seemed that whether I wanted to or not, this wedding would have to happen. As I chewed on a piece of beef, I sneaked a glance at Tong Jinjae beside me. He looked relaxed, smiling brightly, as if he were genuinely delighted. His acting was truly top-notch. Looking at him, you'd think this was a real marriage. After my parents found out, they were so happy that they immediately told the driver to come pick me up and take me home. On the way, I received a call from the bridal boutique. The sales assistant's voice was panicked on the other end. "Miss Shen, President Shaw brought a young woman to try on your wedding dress. No matter how I tried to persuade him, he wouldn't listen. Please come over quickly." My fingers tightened. That wedding dress had been jointly created by 8 designers, with Donnie custom making the shoes just for me. It was worth millions. I myself hadn't even tried it on once, yet Ethan Shaw had let Hannah Yan wear it first. My voice turned cold. "Tell Uncle Jean to go to the bridal boutique." When I arrived, Hannah Yan was already wearing that dress, standing beneath the brilliant lights. The fabric shimmered like a galaxy, sparkling all over. She held Ethan Shaw's hand, smiling radiantly. When she saw me, she covered her mouth and put on a show of surprise. "Miss Shen, you finally decided to come see Brother Ethan. These past few days, he's been very worried about her." Wearing high heels, I walked toward them expressionlessly. "Oh? Worried about me?" I said flatly. "You even let an outsider try on my wedding dress. That's some real concern." My gaze was icy. Ethan Shaw immediately stepped in front of Hannah Yan, cutting off the line of sight between me and her. His tone turned irritated. "If you're unhappy about something, say it to me. Don't take digs at Yanyan. I was the one who told her to try it on. She was just curious about a high-end design. I only let her experience it for a bit." I stood there in silence, finding it ridiculous. In truth, I didn't blame Hannah Yan. Ultimately, the fault wasn't hers. Even without Hannah Yan, there would have been a Zhang Yanyan, a Wang Yanyan. The one who had pushed 2 women into pain and into an unnecessary battle was the man standing in front of me. If he had been single-minded and loyal, none of this would have happened. Even though I had thought it through, I wasn't a saint. The people who hurt me, of course they needed to be mentally prepared to pay it back, whether it was him or her. I forced down the sourness rising in my nose and lifted my head. The Shen family paid for half of this wedding dress. I have the right to decide what happens to it. Miss Yan, if you don't take it off immediately, I'll sue you for unlawfully occupying someone else's property. Hannah Yan's face went pale as she hurriedly lifted the skirt and ran into the fitting room. Ethan Shaw stood before me, looking down at me from above. As the current head of the Shaw family, he was no longer the inexperienced young man he once was, but someone steady and authoritative. He looked at me arrogantly. You've made enough of a scene. You still haven't added me back on WeChat? I glanced at him and laughed. President Shaw, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. I truly want to break up with you. Ethan let out a soft, contemptuous laugh. If you could really let go, you wouldn't have rushed here so urgently. Even at this moment, he still thought I was playing hard to get. And yes, that made sense. For so many years, I had always been the one chasing after him. He was used to standing above, thinking that as long as he crooked a finger, I would turn back. In the past, those words would have pierced my heart unbearably. But now, I felt nothing at all. There was only one thought in my mind. Since when had Tong Jinjae placed that photo frame on his desk? That lunatic, why would he do that? My curiosity about it, in this very moment, was even stronger than my desire for revenge. While I was lost in thought, Hannah Yan had already changed. The boutique staff handed the wedding dress to me. I took out the scissors I had hidden earlier at the reception desk and brought them down in one swift cut. The movement was so fast that neither of them had time to stop me. I flicked my wrist forcefully, and the white fabric scattered through the air. By the time Ethan shouted, the wedding dress had already been shredded into pieces, falling all over the floor. Emily Shen, are you insane? Ethan yelled. Hannah Yan's face turned ashen as she choked out, "This dress, it's worth millions." I calmly handed the scissors back to the staff and slowly looked at Ethan Shaw. The wedding dress has been destroyed. The engagement between our two families is hereby terminated. Ethan's expression darkened, his voice turning cold. Emily Shen, don't regret this. Even if you kneel and beg me in the future, I won't turn back. I couldn't be bothered to look back at him. You're overthinking it. There are plenty of men out there. Behind me, Ethan clenched his fists tightly. The news of me tearing the wedding dress spread quickly through high society. Everyone was buzzing about it, about President Shaw abandoning the engagement, about Miss Shen ripping the wedding dress apart, about how neither side would back down. Still, most people secretly believed that we would eventually get back together. After all, both sets of parents had witnessed the engagement. No matter how loud the fight, it surely wouldn't truly blow up. I had no interest in explaining those ridiculous speculations. Instead, I made plans with my longtime best friend, Lynn Miller, to meet at a cafe. Lynn Miller was my classmate all through middle school and high school. Her family ran a small business, so she could never really squeeze into my close-knit circle, where everyone spent money like water. At school, Lynn was always a bit self-conscious. She spoke timidly and usually followed behind me. I liked her gentle personality, so I'd always looked out for her and protected her. Coincidentally, she had been in the same class as Tong Jinjae throughout both middle school and high school, which was why I'd confided in her more than once about that damn man. The moment we sat down, Lynn softened her voice and tried to comfort me. Xiaoyu, you're upset about President Shaw, aren't you? Honestly, let me say this, I don't think he ever loved you as much as you thought he did. Before, you gave in for his sake so many times. This time, are you really going to keep doing that? I stared out the window at the street, went quiet for a moment, then let out a faint, self-mocking smile. Giving in? Ethan Shaw and I have been over for a long time. Lynn looked surprised. Huh? Then why do you still look like you have something on your mind? Is it because you're worried it won't be easy to explain things to your parents? The wind chime by the window swayed gently, letting out a clear, tinkling sound. I propped my chin on my hand, hesitating. It's not that, I just don't know how to say it. I hooked my finger at her, signaling her to lean closer, and whispered about what had happened at the Tong family house. As soon as I finished, Lynn's hand slipped and her coffee cup fell to the floor, shattering. She hurriedly apologized, her eyes darting away. After the staff finished cleaning up and we sat back down, I could clearly sense that something was off with her. I asked directly, "What's wrong? Why are you reacting like this when Tong Jinjae is mentioned? Don't tell me you like him." Lynn panicked and waved her hands. How could I dare? I pointed at her face. All right, Lynn Miller, you're hiding something from me. She bit her lower lip, so nervous that cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Seeing her like that suddenly made me angry. I told her everything, yet she'd kept so much from me, not even an explanation. Forget it, looks like there's nothing left to say. I picked up my bag and got ready to leave. Lin hurried after me and blocked my path. Xiao Yu, I'm sorry. I really do have something I've been hiding from you. It has to do with Tong Jinjie. Do you remember Zhao Ran? I froze. Wasn't that guy the notorious big shot from number 2 high school? Back in high school, Zhao Ran had relied on good grades and brute force to lead a gang of underclassmen into fights with students from other schools. He'd even blocked my path once. I hadn't wanted anything to do with that lunatic and had turned to leave, but he, used to throwing his weight around, had actually grabbed me. He shoved me, and my knee scraped and started bleeding. Furious, I kicked him hard. Zhao Ran had threatened me, telling me not to go home early after school the next day. But nothing happened the following day, and after that, I never saw Zhao Ran at number 1 high school again. Lin said she had personally witnessed Tong Jinjie storm into number 2 high school and beat Zhao Ran half to death. Number 2 high was on Lin's way from school. That afternoon, the sunset dyed the sky red. As usual, Lin had her backpack on and was passing the intersection near number 2 high when she heard piercing screams. Her nerves instantly tightened. Everyone knew number 2 high had a lot of delinquents, but she hadn't expected things to get that out of hand. She quickened her pace, and when she passed by the group, she suddenly recognized the person grabbing Zhao Ran by the collar and beating him until his face turned purple. It was her classmate, Tong Jinjie. The realization stunned her. Tong Jinjie's face was icy, his movements brutal. He slammed Zhao Ran's head against the wall again and again, blood splattering across the bricks. You've got some nerve, he snarled. You dared to lay a hand on my girlfriend? Zhao Ran was already dizzy, his head spinning. What girlfriend? I didn't touch her at all. I haven't even flirted with any girl lately. Zhao Ran protested weakly. Tong Jinjie slowly took out his phone and shoved a photo in front of his face. Remember now, idiot? Zhao Ran let out a pained groan. Tong Jinjie, are you insane? I just pushed her once. Tong Jin slapped him hard across the face. I don't care. From now on, get the hell out of any area even remotely close to her. After saying that, he released him. Zhao Ran slid to the ground like a lifeless corpse while his underlings curled up, clutching their wounds, too scared to move. When Lynn Miller saw the blood-stained black t-shirt on Tong Jinjie, she nearly lost her soul. Just as she turned to run, a metal rod whistled through the air and slammed into the wall beside her. You enjoy watching the show that much? Tong Jinjie strode over lazily. Lin was so terrified, she collapsed to the ground. I didn't mean to. Please don't hit me. Tong Jinjie looked down at her, bent slightly, and curled his lips into a cold smile. Do you want to make it through the next 3 years of high school in peace? Lin nodded frantically. Tong Jinjie lowered his gaze. Good. What happened today? You don't say a word to Emily Shen. And anything about me related to her at school, you don't tell her either. If you do. He made a slicing motion at his throat. Lin had never seen anything like this before and burst into tears on the spot. I definitely won't say anything. As Lin told me this, tears streamed down her face again. I didn't know whether to laugh or be annoyed. You idiot, he was just scaring you. The Tong family raised him strictly, no bullying the weak, and absolutely no bullying girls. Hearing that, I finally realized that Tong Jinjie did have a sense of loyalty. He had even used the title of my girlfriend to take revenge for me. Lin looked at my reaction and sighed. Xiao Yu, how have you still not realized that he likes you? At your engagement, so many powerful figures showed up, everyone except President Tong. I heard he drank himself senseless that day. I froze. That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. I burst out laughing. You don't know this, but back then when your class and mine were kept after school, he just happened to walk home with me on the way. Every single day he'd provoke me until I was furious. He never skipped a single afternoon. Lin said hesitantly. Actually, our class wasn't kept after school at all. Tong Jinjie stayed behind on purpose, just to wait for you. I couldn't smile anymore. You're saying your class wasn't kept? On the way home, Lin's words kept circling in my head. Tong Jinjie's face appeared over and over again, how he always seemed to coincidentally show up under the teaching building, flash a grin, and say, Hey, fancy meeting you again. What, are you scared to walk home alone and waiting for me to be your bodyguard? His mouth had always been too sharp, so I'd never thought much of it. I never questioned why he always happened to walk with me. Was it really because Tong Jinjae liked me? He liked me? That was about as likely as Mars crashing into Earth. Right then, my dad invited Tong Jinjae over for dinner. By the time I got home, they were already halfway through the meal. Since it had been arranged in advance, no one waited for me. My dad saw me come back early and asked kindly, "Good girl, why are you home so early? Did you eat with your friends?" My gaze unconsciously met Tong Jinjae's, who was sitting upright beside my dad. A strange feeling quietly crept between us. I was the first to look away. "I'm not very hungry. I'll just eat a little later. You and Mom go ahead, I'll go put my things away." My mom called after me, "All right, if you get hungry later, come down and eat more, sweetheart." I went up to my room, my mind a tangled mess. Sitting on the edge of the bed, memories from the past came flooding back. When I first met Tong Jinjae, he had been very polite. I didn't know when it started, but at some point he began picking fights with me alone. From then on, we were constantly at odds. Yet because of that, Tong Jinjae became the most vivid mark of my youth. Wherever there were memories, there he was. Could this be what he wanted? Suddenly, I remembered the year we graduated from high school. Our close-knit group of friends once went together to a famous Taoist temple to pray for good luck. Everyone bought red wish papers and wrote down their hopes, wishing for success in the college entrance exams. 6 slips of paper were placed into a glass jar, and in the end, it was handed to me for safekeeping. Even now, that glass jar was still sitting in my cabinet. All of a sudden, it felt as if I understood something. I stood up abruptly and opened the cabinet, taking the jar out. If Tong Jinjae really had done so many things for me and even entrusted me with this wish jar, then, had he written a wish back then? I felt like a student facing an exam question, anxious to find the answer. I rummaged through the slips of paper, found the one with Tong's name, and unfolded it. Written clearly on it were the words, "Tong Jinjae likes Emily Shen." I stumbled back a step. No wonder that day, after we left the temple, he had handed me the jar and even warned me seriously, "You're not planning to secretly look, are you?" Back then, I'd pouted, as if I'd do something like you. He'd turned his face away. "If you're really curious, you can look at mine too." As I was still stepping backward, I bumped into a solid chest. Tong Jinjae's low, hoarse voice sounded behind me. "Idiot. Your reaction is way too slow. It's been all these years, only figuring it out now." I spun around and glared at him angrily. "You like me?" Tong Jinjae slipped his hands into his pockets, looking lazy as ever. "Is that not allowed?" The glow of the sunset stretched across the windowsill, droplets of water on the hanging orchid pots reflecting a gentle light. Birds chirped among the trees in the garden. Time seemed to rewind, back to the summers of our youth. The tall man standing in front of me slowly overlapped with the unruly boy in my memories. Those subtle emotions from back then, only when I looked back did I finally realize them. When I failed exams, he hid his comfort beneath sharp banter. Whenever something happened, he was always the first to appear. So it turned out that someone had been quietly loving me for so many years. I looked at Tong Jinjae with complicated eyes, a trace of guilt stirring in my heart. He still looked calm, the corner of his lips moving slightly as he stepped closer, his voice carrying a hint of teasing. "Why are you looking at me like that? If you like me, just be bold and force a kiss. Don't keep flirting with your eyes like this." I really shouldn't have expected any romantic development from this irritating man. Even if he were the male lead, it wouldn't be a proper romance. I pushed him by the back. "Enough. I'm just thinking. If you're done eating, hurry up and go home." Tong Jinjae saw through me but didn't press it. "All right." Before the door closed, half his head poked back in as he peeked at me. "Hey, Miss Shy, when are you taking wedding photos with me? I already ordered the wedding dress." I turned my back on him. "Tomorrow." He gently closed the door. The moment his footsteps faded, I grabbed a pillow and smashed it onto the bed like a madwoman. I'm insane. How could I be this stupid? Only realizing it now. This time, the wedding photo shoot was pushed forward jointly by both families. The engagement with the Shaw family had turned me into a laughingstock. And although my parents didn't say anything out loud, they must have been furious inside. I never expected Tong Jinjae to have ordered the wedding dress 2 years ago. The dress had been refined and perfected over those 2 years, and the final result drew admiration from everyone. Even my mother couldn't stop praising it. I zoomed in on the photos on my tablet, silently thinking that the price must far exceed the previous dress. Tongjinja really spared no expense. The tailor helped place the veil on my head. I lifted my gaze. In the mirror was a girl with skin as white as snow. Perhaps only on a day like this could someone truly see themselves as the most beautiful bride in the world. A tall figure appeared in the mirror. I turned my head, my eyes meeting Tongjinja's. He stood there quietly, looking at me for a very long time. The corner of his lips curved into a smile, his voice sounding half teasing, half so pleased he could barely hide it. "Emily Shen, you really are hard to win over." I looked at him and smiled as well. Sometimes, I felt a little guilty. Tongjinja had done so much for me, and his feelings for me ran deep, while between him and me, it felt more like a progress bar that had just started loading. Everything was only just beginning. I wanted to respond to him, but I didn't know what I could possibly do that would be enough. Yet, with the tacit understanding we'd built over so many years, I knew that if I said something too earnest, he would immediately expect me to change, to stop being myself. And he wanted Emily Shen to remain the same in front of him, the carefree, lively, lovable girl she'd always been. So I only smiled, tugged lightly on his tie, and said, "But I have a very long shelf life. Chasing me is a lifetime commitment." Tongjinja's gaze flickered slightly. "You said that yourself." The photography team was extremely professional. The entire process went smoothly, and the results turned out beautifully. The studio owner even asked whether they could use our photos as sample displays in the shop. Neither Tongjinja nor I had any objections. A week later, the edited photos were finished and prominently displayed on the studio wall. The day we went to see them, we happened to run into Ethan Shaw's younger cousin, Sharon Shaw. She had just gotten engaged herself and had come to take wedding photos. When Sharon saw the photo on the wall, she froze on the spot. Her cousin had just been bragging at a gathering a few days earlier that Emily Shen would soon come back to apologize and rekindle their old relationship. But looking at this scene, it was obvious that the Miss Shen of the Q family had already found her true love long ago. Sharon declined the manager's invitation, pulled out her phone, and rushed outside. "Brother, something big has happened." Tongjinja, that scheming man, was already sitting there sipping tea, speaking to my parents with an utterly innocent expression. "Mom, Dad, even though the newlywed house has already been fully decorated, I'm still worried Emily might not like it. But that's fine, she's been too busy to come take a look. I can finish arranging everything myself." After hearing this, my mom scolded me harshly, saying I was irresponsible and dumped everything onto Tongjinja. Who doesn't know how fake that man is? He just wants an excuse to be alone with you. After dinner, still fuming, I stormed over to find him, only to see him leisurely brewing tea, dressed in silk pajamas, legs crossed as he watched a movie on the sofa. I was the one getting scolded, while he was enjoying himself, infuriating. I snatched the remote from his hand. "You sly fox. Tongjinja, you really are a sly fox." His pajama collar was loosely open, revealing a breathtakingly beautiful collarbone. He reached out and pulled me into his arms. "Back when you were with Ethan Shaw, you called him once every 3 days, and you had to meet up every few days too. Am I really worse than him? I haven't even gotten a single call from you." Tongjinja looked at me with eyes full of grievance. I felt a little guilty. "Well, haven't we been friends for so many years?" Tongjinja let out a cold laugh. "So because we were too close, you think you can treat me however you want? Did you forget what we are now?" It was true. Switching from friends to lovers was a bit awkward. My brain hadn't finished updating its software yet. It really was my fault. I hurriedly admitted it. "I was careless. I'm sorry, my love. No, my baby. I'll call you every day from now on." Why did that feel so strange to say? After hearing me, Tongjinja's expression darkened even more. He flipped over and pinned me down onto the sofa. "I see now. Looks like we need to do a few things to change the way you treat me, so that you'll know I'm your man." I thought for a few seconds, then slowly replied, "Fine." Tongjinja grabbed my collar, bent down, scooped me up, and tossed me straight into the bedroom. He stripped off my outer coat, one hand braced beside my ear, his posture confident and dangerously seductive. But But this was Tong Jinjae, the man I'd been fighting with since childhood. I couldn't help laughing. Tong Jinjae frowned, clearly displeased. "What are you laughing at?" I said. "It just suddenly feels like my left hand holding my right hand, you know?" Tong Jinjae stared at me without expression. Oh, the very next second he kissed me fiercely. "I'll make you change your mind." His long fingers traced along my curves, every place they passed setting my skin on fire. Half an hour later, my eyes were red as I bit my lip and begged him to stop. My phone kept ringing. It was an unfamiliar number. Messages flooded in as well. "Emily, what's going on with the wedding photos? Pick up the phone. Why is this happening? Our two families were already engaged. How could you dare do this? Didn't you say that no matter what, you'd never leave me?" By then, I was no longer clear-headed enough to respond to anything. That madman Tong Jinjae tormented me while I read message after message. He kept asking over and over whether I liked Ethan Shaw or him. All I could do was sink into the surging waves, unable to think. When I finally woke up, my entire body ached. I angrily slammed a pillow, both embarrassed and furious. "Tong Jinjae, where did you even learn those moves?" Tong Jinjae walked in carrying breakfast and a cup of soy milk, leaned down and gently kissed my forehead. He raised an eyebrow. "Baby, do you still see me as just a friend now?" I grabbed the toast and took a vicious bite, refusing to answer. "You're really something." That afternoon, we were scheduled to meet the elders of the Tong family to discuss the wedding. Tong Jinjae and I arrived at the ancestral house as planned, but Mrs. Tong's close friend had suddenly returned from abroad, so she and Uncle Tong had to go receive her. The huge villa was left with just the two of us. After the door was unlocked, Tong Jinjae immediately started acting restless, pulling me into his arms, kissing and hugging me non-stop. After what he'd done to me last night, I needed several days to recover. Fortunately, that infuriating man still had a shred of conscience and didn't push me further. He lowered his head and kissed my forehead lightly, his slender fingers gently brushing my hair aside. Just then, the front door was suddenly shoved open. Amid the noise, a guard's voice rang out, "President Shaw, you can't go in. This is private property." Ethan Shaw saw the scene in front of him and immediately clenched his fists, veins bulging. His breathing was heavy, his voice furious. "It's only been a few days, and you've already thrown yourself into Tong Jinjae's arms? Then what am I? Were all those years fake?" He glared at me. "Emily Shen, I never thought you were this kind of heartless woman." I didn't react at all. I didn't even feel moved. Wasn't this exactly the feeling he had once given me? When he stood beside Hannah Yan, had he ever thought about how much it hurt me? I was merely returning his treatment to me, yet he was enraged. Before I could speak, Tong Jinjae lazily lifted his gaze and smiled faintly. "Why are you in such a hurry, ex-fiancé? You chose your childhood sweetheart, she marries her childhood companion. Isn't that fair?" Ethan narrowed his eyes. "President Tong, that's not very gentlemanly. You should at least know who came first." Tong Jinjae seemed to hear something amusing. "Funny, President Shaw? Don't you know Emily and I have known each other since middle school? Who came first isn't so clear, is it?" Ethan's face flushed red with anger. Unwilling to argue further, he lunged forward and grabbed my hand. His grip was strong, yanking me upright as he tried to pull me outside to talk alone. But before we'd taken more than a few steps, my other hand was seized by Tong Jinjae. The opposing forces stretched me painfully between them. I cried out, "Let go of me." Tong Jinjae's face turned cold. "President Shaw, where exactly are you trying to take my wife? Even if you regret the past, you shouldn't lose your manners like this." Hearing that, Ethan froze, then roared. "Tong Jinjae, what nonsense are you talking about? Emily Shen is my fiancée." Tong Jinjae burst out laughing and calmly took out the red marriage certificate, placing it on the table. "President Shaw, you must have had a bit too much to drink and aren't thinking clearly. The Tong family has already sent out invitations to all the major families, inviting them to attend my wedding with my wife next month. Don't tell me Uncle and Auntie haven't informed you yet?" Ethan Shaw opened the booklet. When he saw the wedding photo inside, panic flashed across his eyes. He looked up at me in shock, then grabbed my arm. "Emily, you did this on purpose, didn't you? You're doing this because I made you angry, right?" I coldly shook his hand off. "Ethan Shaw, I already told you, we're over." He took a deep breath, rubbed his forehead, then looked up at me again. Emily, listen to my explanation. I admit I neglected you before, but I really do love you. There's nothing between Hannah Yan and me. I only see her as a younger sister. Don't misunderstand. Tong Jinja's expression darkened as he stepped in front of me. President Shah, please keep your distance from my wife. Enraged, Ethan knocked over the vase on the table with a sweep of his arm, shards shattering across the floor. He pointed at Tong Jinja, murderous fury in his eyes. Tong Jinja, do you really think the Shah family is that easy to bully? Tong Jinja sneered, then lashed out with a kick that sent him crashing to the ground. He stepped forward and threw a few punches, his voice flat and cold. I've put up with you for a long time, President Shah. Haven't there been quite a few problems in your company lately? How about you deal with the tax evasion and copyright infringement cases first? That's losses in the tens of millions. And you still have the leisure to pine after another man's wife? Ethan staggered, gritting his teeth. You set me up. Tong Jinja released him and returned to his usual indifferent composure. President Shah, don't slander people without evidence. Ever since school, I've been a well-behaved, exemplary student. With that, he shot a look at the security guards. President Shah, my wife and I still have things to discuss. We won't be seeing you out. The guard stepped forward and dragged Ethan outside. His eyes remained fixed on me the entire time. As for me, I felt not a trace of pity, only watched coldly as he was pulled away, just like that year when he stood beside Hannah Yan and looked at me with the same icy gaze. That very morning, news of the alliance marriage between the Tong and Shen families spread rapidly throughout the city. The childhood sweethearts were said to be a perfect match. I also heard that day, the eldest young master of the Shaw family drank until he vomited blood at a bar. He sent me messages every day, desperately trying to pull me back. Emily, I finally understand how you felt. These past 2 days, my heart has been burning. Every time I think about you and Tong Jinja together, my blood boils. I really want to take you back. How did things end up like this? You were supposed to be mine. I was busy preparing for work and the wedding and had no time to pay him any attention. That evening, after getting off work, as usual, I went to the parking lot to get my car, only to be stopped by a familiar-looking woman. She was wearing a hat and a mask, arms spread out to block my way. When I looked closer, I realized it was Hannah Yan. She said anxiously, "How can you be so heartless? Brother Ethan drank himself senseless because of you and got into an accident on the road. He's about to die, and all he does is call your name. Are you really going to be so cruel that you won't even see him one last time?" I froze. Uncle Shah had always treated me well. If it was really a matter of life and death, I couldn't just ignore it. But I also couldn't go alone. I had to call Tong Jinja with me to avoid any misunderstanding. Just as I took out my phone to make the call, Hannah Yan grabbed me and shoved me into the car. At a time like this, you're still calling someone? There's no time. It'll be too late. She drove me to a private hospital. The moment I pushed open the ward door, I saw that it was pitch dark inside. Then I heard the sound of the door locking behind me. Dim lights flickered on. Ethan Shaw, like a madman, lifted my chin. "No, Emily, you won't abandon me, right? When I was at rock bottom, the only one who helped me was you. You're the one I love the most." Ethan Shaw's expression sent a chill down my spine. I shoved him away and kept my distance. "Ethan Shaw, don't you think this is childish and meaningless? Back then, when I wanted to talk things through seriously with you, you avoided me like the plague. Now that I'm married, you keep pestering me without end." His eyes reddened as he shouted, "Then what am I supposed to do? Tell me, what am I supposed to do? Why did it turn out like this? We clearly promised each other." "You can't marry him." Ethan slowly took off his jacket, a twisted smile spreading across his face. "This room is full of cameras. If a video of you and me getting tangled up were to get out and the Tong family saw it, do you think they'd still accept a daughter-in-law like you?" He advanced toward me step by step. "Don't blame me, it's just because I love you too much." Panic surged through me as I backed away. Put my hand groping behind me, hoping to find something I could use as a weapon. Thankfully, there was a broom in the corner. I grabbed it and swung it hard at him. "Ethan Shaw, have you lost your mind?" Ethan laughed like a madman. Yes, I've gone insane. I went insane a long time ago, the moment I saw you being intimate with Tong Jinjae. Only then did I realize how much I love you. Emily, I can't live without you. He was determined to go all in. No matter how hard I struck him, he didn't retreat. Just as he was about to reach me, the door was kicked open with a bang. Tong Jinjae burst in, his whole body radiating killing intent. The instant he took in the scene, he exploded. You bastard! Are you looking to die? He grabbed a metal rod and charged forward, beating Ethan mercilessly. Behind him, Hannah Yan appeared with her hair in disarray, restrained by several women as she was slapped and shoved around. Ethan, who had lived a pampered life, was no match for Tong Jinjae. After just a few blows, he collapsed to the ground, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. Only then did Tong Jinjae rush over and pull me into his arms. When he touched me, his hands were still trembling. I'm sorry. I was late. Baby, are you scared? I hadn't even fully processed what had happened. I could only shake my head. Tong Jinjae held me even tighter. This is my fault. I didn't protect you well enough. I leaned against his chest. Don't worry. I'm fine. His voice turned icy. I swear, something like this will never happen again. A few minutes later, the police arrived and took both of them away. My heart was still pounding wildly, and I hadn't recovered from the shock. Ethan Shaw had clearly planned everything carefully. I was a senior executive in a major corporation. If I were dragged into a scandal like this, it would affect the entire company. Not to mention the Tong family's formidable reputation. If they found out, they might not have accepted a daughter-in-law like me. On top of that, my engagement with the Shaw family was common knowledge. If I were to go back, it would have seemed understandable. He had calculated every step. I had been far too careless, never imagining he could be so shameless as to gamble with his own life. After this incident, Tong Jinjae hated Ethan Shaw to the bone. He gathered all the evidence and handed everything over to the police. In the end, Ethan Shaw was sentenced to 2 years in prison for attempted sexual assault. When Hannah Yan heard the news, she went berserk and ran to find me. She stood outside my gate, screaming and smashing things, hurling curses. Emily Shen, you shameless bitch, give brother Ethan back to me. You loved each other for so many years. How could you be so heartless? He just favored me a little, that's all. You're just a jealous woman. He only made a small mistake. Was it really worth you doing this? I had endured this woman long enough. I walked up to her and lifted my chin. Hannah Yan, don't even mention him. And as for you, I won't let you off either. People say it's better to destroy 10 temples than to break one marriage. Yet you kept jumping around in front of me again and again. Did you really think I was that easy to bully? I took out the folder I had prepared and flung it straight at her face. Those uncertified, substandard products you scammed people into buying domestically. Do you remember them? Using social media to run fraudulent ads claiming to cure illnesses. Miss Yan, you really dared to do anything. At that, Hannah Yan's expression changed instantly. Someone like her, who specialized in underhanded tricks, surely had more than just one dirty secret. When a person's morals are warped, their actions are never clean either. Sure enough, once we followed the trail, we dug up quite a lot. Hannah Yan's wavering gaze faltered, and she stopped spouting nonsense. What evidence do you have to dare slander me? I lifted the corner of my lips in a smile. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. The fine from the Market Supervision Bureau will be delivered to you soon enough. Miss Yan, take care of yourself. At that moment, her phone rang with a message. After a single glance, her expression changed instantly. She began shouting hysterically, Emily Shen, you bitch, how dare you ruin me? Before she could even rush at me, the Tong family's bodyguards dragged her out. 5 days later, her case made the news. Not long after, a customer nearly lost their life after using her uncertified products and came straight to her door to demand answers. Hannah Yan was beaten until her face was swollen and bruised. That very night, she bought a ticket and fled abroad. Once everything was finally settled, Tong Jinjae's attention turned entirely to me. Lately, it was as if he'd been struck by spring fever. At home, he wouldn't stop tormenting me. Even after I was completely worn out, it still wasn't enough. He even started settling old scores. He grabbed my wrist and stopped me from entering the study. Tong Jinjae tilted his head, his handsome face clearly displeased. No. This isn't fair. I blinked in confusion. What's not fair? There were beads of sweat on his collarbone as he pressed me down onto the sofa, his tone sounding irritated. Everyone knew you and Ethan Shaw were in love, but when it comes to me, people say you only married me to get back at him. Why do I have to be the pitiful second male lead in everyone else's story? I was momentarily speechless. Then what do you want? Tong Jinjae curled his lips. Make it public. I'm setting up a gathering with Zhao Rui and some people in our circle. Invite everyone. He leaned close to my ear, his voice low and hoarse. You have to show that you're madly in love with me. Help me shut down those rumors. I didn't dare imagine how embarrassing that scene would be. But when his hand gently squeezed my waist, I surrendered instantly. Tong Jinjae was far too devious. I really couldn't handle him. At the gathering, I fed grapes to Tong Jinjae, looking at him as if my eyes were filled with stars. Baby, is it good? Tong Jinjae wrapped an arm around me. Anything my wife feeds me is the best. The 4 friends beside us stared in shock. Zhao Rui said, Xiao Yu, have you been bewitched? Blink if you need help. Duan Bing followed up. Why do I feel like I still haven't woken up? Wu asked. Wait, are these 2 for real? Xian added, I'd rather believe this is brotherly love. I smiled gently. Haha, actually I've liked President Tong for a long time. Zhao Rui's eyes flew wide open. What? The heavens, my faith has collapsed. Tong Jinjae was utterly pleased. He bent down and kissed my forehead. Just then, the door to the private room was pushed open. Lin Miller stepped in, looking a little nervous. Duan Bing's eyes lit up. Lin, you finally decided to come out with us? No matter what, you never used to come. Lin smiled awkwardly. I was a bit tight on money back when we were in school. Wu waved his hand. Come on, who's asking you to pay? When you're with us, you just enjoy yourself. Lin greeted everyone one by one. When she saw Tong Jinjae, she looked a little flustered and quickly avoided his gaze. I knew she still felt guilty about not keeping the secret back then. Tong Jinjae smiled at her. Our secret weapon has arrived? Then he added casually, when we get married, make sure you sit at the main table. Lin blinked in confusion. President Tong, you're not mad at me? Tong Jinjae curved his lips. Without you, this silly fish probably would have stayed clueless for another 2 years. Thank you, our great wingman. Lin pressed her lips together and smiled. It was nothing, I didn't really do anything. Tong Jinjae pointed at his cheek, signaling for me to kiss him. I gritted my teeth and pecked him, then leaned in and muttered, That's enough already. I'm about to lose my acting stamina. Tong Jinjae smiled at me. This debt, you'll have to pay it back in full. I pouted, completely unable to refute him. As evening fell, Tong Jinjae drove his supercar and took me to the bridge to watch the sunset. Back when we were in school, whenever I was in a bad mood, he would always bring me here to catch the breeze. I leaned against the railing, the evening wind brushing gently against my cheeks, and nudged a small pebble on the ground with the tip of my shoe. I suddenly asked, Hey, when did you start liking me? He tilted his head and looked at me. Back in middle school. That only made me more curious. I was just a little kid back then. What was there to like about me? Tong Jinjae thought for a moment, then said, Does liking someone really need a reason? I just liked you. I gave him a look. That sounds like a cop-out. He hesitated slightly, then continued. If I really had to name a reason, it would probably be because you were confident and free-spirited. He went on. Back in middle school, my dad was very strict. I didn't dare do anything wrong. I wanted approval for everything I did. Everyone said, Your parents are so capable. Don't embarrass the family. You have to be the best. He looked at me. But you were different. That time the teacher dragged the 2 of us into the office and scolded you, saying you disappointed your parents and didn't meet the teacher's expectations. You didn't look upset at all. You even said you'd do your best, but that didn't mean you had to please everyone. You said that was who you were, and if she wasn't satisfied, that was fine too, because you couldn't exactly go back into a furnace and recast yourself. I remembered the teacher's face back then, so furious she was nearly choking and couldn't help laughing out loud. Tong Jinjae lifted his gaze. Maybe it was at that moment that you made me understand what kind of person I wanted to become. That's why I liked you. I rolled my eyes on purpose. Why didn't you just say it was because I was thick-skinned? I understood what he meant, but I still teased him deliberately. So it turned out that Tong Jinjae had once been a model student, only to be led astray by me. And the culprit was none other than me myself. Truly, I had only myself to blame. The afterglow of dusk fell over the two of us. Tong Jinjae lifted my chin and kissed me. Amid our hurried breaths, he murmured softly, "It's fine. I'm not exactly thin-skinned either." Before we knew it, the wedding day arrived. I put on a pure white wedding dress, held a bouquet, and stood waiting for the man who would walk toward me. Below were the blessing gazes of friends and family. Tong Jinjae looked at me with incomparable tenderness. I smiled sweetly at him. That childhood sweetheart had silently protected me for half my life. This debt of love, I would have to repay it with my entire lifetime. What breaks a person more, being lied to or choosing to believe the lie? Love and Lie's story.